On today's World Insight, China unveils broad new policies and measures to jumpstart the Chinese economy on the heels of a national holiday consumer spending boom. The significance of these measures, potential impact on China's economic outlook for the rest of the year.
Hello and welcome to World Insight with me, Tian Wei. China's National Development and Reform Commission, the nation's top economic planner, said Tuesday that China is confident in maintaining steady and healthy economic growth, on track for its full-year growth targets. NDRC Chairman Zheng Shanjie, along with deputy heads, unveiled a wide-ranging action plan. Local governments will get 100 billion yuan from next year's central government budget and another 100 billion yuan for key investment projects by year-end, Zheng said. Market sentiment has improved recently with well-performing China shares and resurging consumer market over the National Day holidays. That's while carrying out existing policies and more measures unveiled recently. How well can stability be kept while pursuing growth targets in uncertain times? What is the bedrock of Chinese economy? Let's loop in our panelists. Joining us on the latest policies regarding China's economy in Beijing, Huang Hanchuan, head of the Chinese Academy of Macroeconomic Research, affiliated to the National Development and Reform Commission, or NDRC. In Shanghai, John Ross, a senior fellow at the Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies with Renmin University of China. In Beijing, Liu Baocheng, Dean of the Center for International Business Ethics from the University of International Business and Economics. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. Mr. Huang, first question go to you. On Tuesday morning, Beijing time, an important presser given by senior officials of NDRC, which your research institute is affiliated with. Tell us more about what should be the key messages coming from the press conference in your view.
From what I've observed, investment and consumption are key drivers of economic growth. Right now, the biggest issue facing our economy is a lack of domestic demand. The media conference this morning clearly signaled that we need to take coordinated actions in several areas, including investment, consumption, major infrastructure projects, and real estate. The idea is for these sectors to move forward together. From this perspective, the comprehensive approach should help to promote economic recovery.
Among all the policies mentioned by senior officials from NDRC, there are quite a number of issues related to encouraging the confidence of the private sector in China. Now, among all being announced, what do you think are the most significant in short term, particularly to revive the confidence from the private sector?
Private enterprises are crucial to China's economic development. The policy package includes several favorable measures aimed at supporting them. First, major national infrastructure projects will be opened up to private companies. They will be encouraged to invest in infrastructure like railway, electricity, and nuclear power facilities. Second, the government will help private businesses fix the challenges they face, particularly in gaining fair access to key resources such as bank loans and land. Third, there will be efforts to standardize law enforcement to prevent harm that could be caused to private enterprises by either arbitrary or localized enforcement practices.
We have been looking at some of the media reports coming from all over the world, Mr. Huang, about how significant the policies being announced on Tuesday morning presser. We noticed that many of them believe there is not necessarily a clear-cut announcement of specific stimulus packages, and the amount of the overall stimulus policies is yet to be known. Your take?
因为这个数据呢，我觉得目前来说还不好
As for the figure, it's still too early to give a clear estimate, as more policies are expected to follow. Before the National Day holiday, we saw supportive monetary policies being announced, but fiscal policies have not yet been rolled out. Besides, related industry policies will likely emerge in due course. So at this moment, it's premature to provide a specific number regarding the size of the economic stimulus.
Are we going to see it in the coming weeks or a few days?
Yes, I do expect more supportive policies to be announced in the near future.
Mr. Huang Han-chuan, head of the Chinese Academy of Microeconomic Research, affiliated with the NDRC. Appreciate it. Among all the messages coming out at the presser on Tuesday morning by NDRC in China, are there some specific ones that to you crucial? Professor Liu, briefly.
The cognition that a Chinese economy has encountered a number of challenges, be it a cyclical issue, be it a structural issue, etc.
Yeah.
So now it is clearly a quantitative easing. So by jumpstarting the Chinese economy in the invigorating the financial sector through quant easing, and in the meanwhile, to compare with the big dosage that was delivered in 2008 and 2009 for the 4 trillion RMB. The government has really learned some of the lesson to stimulate excessive capacity. So therefore, they try to deliver the quant easing in a slow of measures, and also they take a more of a comprehensive and holistic approach to address a number of issues instead of simply boosting the industrial capacity.
Now, to you, Mr. Ross, among the policies being mentioned, do you think those different directions are being addressed efficiently?
Well, I think there's 3 main components, of which I would say 2 is fine, and 1 I would have some further questions about. Right. The ones which are fine is there's measures being taken to boost consumption. These are particularly focused on poorer people, which has already been done, and on young people with aid to students, and as it's put, youth and older people. This is not a big problem. That's clear. That's within the budgetary control of the government. Then there are steps to take forward various state investments. That's clear. That's being controlled by the federal budget. The issue in which I would hope there will be measures, and I'd like to see a bit more clarity, is on the question of private investment, because that has been under downward pressure, and confidence is not enough. You've got to also generate cash. I mean, there are some things which are very useful, which are such as the reduction on interest rates, etc. But I would like to see a bit more on that, because otherwise, for example, the stock market increase is not going to be able to continue. So a serious problem has been that there has not been a major increase in profits in China for the last 5 years. So consumption, good, that can be adjusted relatively easy. State investment, good, that can be adjusted relatively easily.
Yeah.
Where I would like to see a bit more clarity is on the question of how to deal with this question of the shortfall in private investment, which is taking place, which means addressing the question of company profitability.
I see. Let's take a look at some of these questions. First of all, the growth rate, around 5% was the target for the very first half of this year, according to official statistics. It is 5%. GDP growth. Now, for the rest of the year, it is still unknown. We only have less than 3 months to go. Professor Liu, at the press conference, NDRC officials certainly has demonstrated their confidence about reaching that target. But from you as a scholar, what are some of the major challenges in the very short term in order to achieve that specific number?
I think it's more of the quality of the economic growth instead of the statistical figures. To boost the statistical figure, it's very easy. You just pour money into the market and disregard inflation, you're going to achieve even more than that. And right now, I think the good prescription relies on good diagnosis. And so, what is really the problem? I think now when you really talk about cyclical issues of the Chinese economic performance, I think it's more of a policy cyclical than really the economic or market cyclical.
Interesting.
So therefore, that's why the government is really hesitant to release a very specific and precise figure, because they are also on a learning curve as how the economy can be addressed. For example, several months ago, they wanted really to boost the domestic consumption through delivering of the coupons and by small measures. But right now, it seems that it doesn't really work, at least to the desired effect. Right. So right now, they really wanted to address the consumption power by taking a more holistic approach. For example, by building a good healthcare system where people can really have the confidence to open their purse. And the other is there to boost employment by encouraging the private sector. And so this is really the right approach, because without the right type of employment, and particularly when the younger people are really relying on their parents' support after their graduation, and this is really a critical issue. So now I feel it's rather positive, but to address those structural issues, they also need to carefully calculate the different rate of contribution by different sectors before they really deliver the prescription for the dosages.
Mr. Ross, as Professor Liu just mentioned, the quality is more important than quantity and the number itself. But 5% around that number is critical for also paving the way of confidence for the Chinese economy, not only domestically, but also for international investors. Your take on that number can be achieved? What are some of the major issues needs to be addressed in the short term?
Yes, the number can be achieved. The shortfall at the present time is maybe 0.3%. I mean, if you take the first half of the year, it was 5%. It was slightly below in the second quarter. 0.3% in GDP can be made up without any great problem. But the critical issue for me is this question about private investment and profitability, because consumption can be moved around. You can issue money. I mean, there's a bit of a confusion. Sometimes people think that the debt problem relies only on investment, but actually, if you're going to boost consumption, you will also have to issue debt. So that's not really a problem. It's just a question of the government expanding it. But it's in the central government is in a relatively healthy fiscal situation. It can also decide within its control is the question of to step up state investment, infrastructure investment, and other things. But it doesn't directly control private sector investment. And so that the rate of state investment has been fairly healthy over the last year, but the private investment is essentially flat. And there's a reason for that, which is because the profitability is flat. And there's no reason why private companies should invest unless they have an increase in profitability. Now, one step has been taken on that. You can increase profitability in the short term by reduction in interest rates, and that's been done. But also you've got to have a situation in which the general balance of the economy has moved towards increasing private sector profitability. And that's what I really wait to see if the place will fall into place during the last part of the year. Because that's the critical bit of the jigsaw.
Meanwhile, we have seen some interesting phenomenon, particularly since the end of September, since the policies coming from the central bank and also from the stock related sectors being announced. We see the Chinese stock market has taken on a upswing trend. So are those stocks internationally related to the Chinese businesses and companies. But of course, we all understand that can be short term. The most important thing is what are the policies churned out later, now and from now on, and what about the implementations of these policies, and whose interest will these policies be able to nurture, and whether that would address the root problems, as both of you have just illustrated. But just this phenomenon itself, Professor Liu, it's an interesting one, because we saw September the 24th, the central bank announced the cutting of interest rates. We also see the other policies, for example, about increasing the to reduce the down payment, to encourage financial institutions to lend money to the investors to buy stocks, by letting them putting down payment to the banks, and also we see other announcement coming from the central bank and others. That's really created quite a stir in the stock market. How do you see this very short-term phenomenon and the enthusiasm of investors, domestically particularly, and also the possible momentum that can be created as a result or related to it?
At the moment, honestly, the Chinese stock market performance is speculative in nature, because we do not really see much of the money is really being channeled to the real economy, either by innovation or high quality products. So hopefully more of the policies can be there to stabilize the confidence of those investors into the real economy. And so right now, if situation stays here, I do agree with John, is that it won't really be able to sustain. So much is really lies still in the fundamental issue of institutional reform. So right now, many of the private sectors, I met a number of business leaders that are feel insecure continually about their property rights, about the constant harassment by different government institutions in their business operation. So these are really the key issues. So without the confidence that are being injected into those serious business leaders, and it turned out to be a game by those investors in the financial marketplace, be it domestic one and foreign ones, and this won't be as healthy. So therefore, protection of the private property and the rule of law, and to restrain the excessive and abuse of government power, particularly at the different local government level, is something that's more fundamental to shore up the confidence, both for the investors and also consumption. As you mentioned that, given all this support, including the lowering the interest rate, lowering the down payments, but people are more rational when they come to their own calculations. So therefore, without really the right type of alleviation of their future worries with regard to their healthcare, with regard to the housing prices, and also with regard particularly their job opportunities and quality of job, not to mention that about. So it won't really serve the desired effect of those policymakers.
Real estate, that of course is another key area of the Chinese economy. It's been a pillar for the Chinese economy for past decades. Now, with latest challenges, there are a number of policies coming out. Meanwhile, also you see local governments, Mr. Ross, just before and during the National Day holiday, try to roll out there are different formats of policies to reduce the mortgage rates, for example, and to also expand the purchase possibilities of average consumers of their own housing, reduce some of those earlier restriction policies. How much have they worked to encourage real transactions in the market? And also you see in the press conference several measures being announced in order to revive the real estate market, at least to stabilize it. Do you see some of the key measures that might work in the middle and the long term, Mr. Ross?
Well, I think the crucial thing in the long term, it depends upon the supply. But the most crucial thing, I think, at the present time is the interest rate. I mean, I'm very pleased to see the reduction in interest rate. I wrote an article about 9 months ago saying that a reduction in interest rates was required. And, the Chinese government obviously has to take very many factors into account in what it's done. And this won't be the first time that we've seen the Chinese government responding to either the economy overheating or the economy undershooting, and I'm pretty sure it won't be the last time either. So the response is that, but the crucial thing that exists on the question of the housing market is going to be the question on the short term. It's going to be on the question of interest rates, and in particular in relationship to mortgages. I do think that it was a mistake to allow a market to develop in housing, which, for example, really doesn't have a substantial rental sector. I'm in general a great admirer of China's economic policy, but I think a policy in which you didn't have rental sector, you basically moved 100% ownership of houses was a mistake. Even the most developed economies have a rental sector. I noticed that, for example, therefore, various local authorities are actually buying up various parts of the unsold property in order to re-establish a rental market. That will have a good medium-term effect. But the short-term one is going to be the question of interest rates and the mortgage rates.
Professor Liu, your thoughts? If you are in Beijing during the National Day holiday, I'm sure, Professor Liu, you have noticed that in some of the middle-class apartment areas, there are more people, certainly, taking advantage of the holiday to go and look for their potential housing. Let's put it this way. But we do not know yet the latest transaction. I'm sure people are pretty pragmatic. So how do you see the interest among consumers remain there? And also, how will that connect with the best policies coming out, not just for the short term, for the number, as you just said, but for the middle and the longer term?
The fundamental issue is that the government, particularly local government, is too much reliant on the land concessions to the real estate developers. So hence the price hike is still there. So I think many of those younger people that are looking for those expos, they are there to show admiration and imagination over their fantasy life. But when they really go back and check on their pocket, and then they still feel disappointed. So right now, I think fundamentally we need really to change the leverage instead of to deal with some of the minor pocket issues, in reducing down payment, etc. So therefore, how the local government can be more generous in asking for less of their land concessions dealing with the real estate developers. And the other issue is that there are way too many red tapes that eat in the entire building cost and selling cost. So, to reduce those bureaucracies and also to stamp out the corruption. And this is really the fundamental issue to bring the price more down to the affordability of those younger people, and also for you and me who really want to improve our living conditions.
Since both of you mentioned about local government, we noticed also from the presser coming on Tuesday morning in China by NDRC officials talking about to speed up the local government bonds that the central government has approved. We see some encouraging numbers, but how much will they help, and to what likely will they be able to help the overall picture, especially related to the local government debts and the potential of local economies?
A long-term bond is really to borrow from our grandchildren, and therefore we need to give a more satisfactory answer to our grandchildren that's hanging in the air. And by building more of the infrastructures, yes, it's going to benefit from the economic performance, but are we going to be able to sustain enough? And also that, for many of the projects, before they really deliver the right type of economic profit, either to the government or to the private sector, they get stuck halfway. For example, you build, a beautiful road, but without the car running on it, without the right tool, you can really achieve. Then, you need to put in more money to repair, and all the maintenance can be very costly. So therefore, I think they need really more of the deliberate calculation as how that's going to be further delivered. And the other is that how we can really play a leverage and synergy effect over the temporary economic development together with the green transition, and then also to look into the long term to leave more for our children instead of consume more of our children's assets.
We noticed at the press conference on Tuesday, just like in many other occasions, the Chinese officials talked about the ever challenging external environment that China is facing, while at the same time, the important task of transform China's economy to high quality growth. Now, how do you see the reality so far? And to you, what is the pragmatic and realistic expectations when so many different factors are combined during a time of transition? Mr. Ross.
The negative is that the US economy is slowing down. There was a misunderstanding. The US economy was supposed to be doing well in the last year. In fact, it was just recovering from its downturn with COVID. That's a negative. The positive is that the Federal Reserve will respond to this by sharply reducing interest rates, and this will create bigger space for China to carry through further reductions in interest rate, which I'm very much in favor of.
Right.
So it's a slightly contradictory situation.
Mr. Liu, Professor.
Yes. Well, if you read all the documents and all the reports, there has never been a time that is not really challenging in the external environment. But the key lies in how we can really govern our economy, given more complexities and given more variables that are brought into real control. So I think in this sense, the quick dosage is only there to jumpstart, but how we can really run the car smoothly and sustainably along a wider road is much dependent on the increase of the governance and also more of the institutional reform.
Right.
Because printing money is the easiest one that can generate immediate impact, and we have to be prepared about the negative impact that can also be created out of there.
Thank you for both of you for sharing your insights and also your analysis of the latest announcement of policies and the next few steps to take. Thank you, John Ross and Liu Baocheng. Appreciate it. And that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to know more, search World Insight. Check out our YouTube channel. Follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian Wei on behalf of the team. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.